Happy Friday! So this is a different type of Facebook Live. So a while ago, and if you've been following my Facebook page, you might remember this one. There was an uproar about this book being sold as a children's book, and it has been around for a while. I'm not sure why it started trending on social media so recently. But there was a bit of an uproar from parents saying it was unnecessary and it's not right, it's too early to tell my kids this. So I thought, you know what, as a sexologist who believes in sex education, and I loved the idea of this book, I grabbed myself a copy and I thought, you know what, I'm going to read it to you and also give you my feedback to see for all the parents out there if they think they should be grabbing a copy as well. So this might be a longer version of Facebook Live and it feels like story time. But I kind of felt that it was necessary to show exactly what was in here. And also, I haven't looked at this before, so it's going to be a complete and utter surprise to me what's inside. So I'm hoping that it's everything I expect it to be, because I really do think that sex education needs to start when children are really young, just with things like normalizing the right terms of body parts and being able to discuss where babies come from. Not in necessarily a graphic way, although apparently it is a bit graphic in this book, but it just starts to normalize the conversation. Okay, so here we go. The amazing true story of how babies are made. Okay. All right. I feel like this really is story time. Babies everywhere. Every animal makes babies. Birds do it. Bears do it. Kangaroos, giraffes, and hares do it. Okay, pretty safe. And people make babies too. Still pretty safe. Okay, there's a lot of funny stories about where babies come from. Maybe you've heard that mothers buy them at the shops, or that parents choose them from the hospital, if only. Or that they grow from something strange their mothers ate. But the true story of how babies are made is much more interesting. Our bodies can do amazing things. Okay, so nice and positive. Boys and girls. When a baby is born, one of the first things parents ask is it a boy or is it a girl? Now, as this book was written a few years ago, I'm feeling that we're going to get a PC updated version where gender is going to be an interesting topic. But let's stick with gender for now. Okay, the doctor or midwife or anyone else can tell straight away because the boys and baby girls are different. Their faces may look pretty much the same, but their parts of their body called genitals are completely different. Diagram. Right, progressive. Boys have a penis, which is also known as a willy, doodle, tackle, or dangly bits. Anybody call their penises doodle, tackly, dangly bits? Can we please call it a penis? A lot of other nicknames. Penises don't look all the same. They come in different shapes and sizes. Some are circumcised, which means the piece of skin that covers the penis, called the foreskin, has been taken off. Very progressive. Boys wee from their penis, which is usually soft and dangly. Sometimes when a little boy is very happy or excited about something, or sometimes for no reason at all, his penis can get hard and stick up on its own. This is called an erection. A little boy's testicles don't do much except hang around, but they become very important later on. Behind the penis, boys also have a scrotum, which is a sort of bag made of skin that holds two balls-shaped things called testicles. You know, the ironic thing is I actually think that there would be a lot of adults out there who some of this information might be new to them. While a boy's penis and scrotum hang out in front, a girl's genitals, which is sometimes known as the vagina, girl bits or privates, are down between her legs. This would have to be now my favourite part. Girls have a vulva, which looks like a bit of pair of lips. Now, my mother always says to me when I start lecturing people about the difference of vulva and vagina, she's like, but sometimes you call it a vagina. And I said, well, because sometimes I struggle to think if people know the difference and society says vagina, so I say vagina. So now I'm so happy that, you know, we've got a book that's saying to kids there's a difference between the vulva and the vagina. Now, one of the big reasons I think this is so important is because when we say to girls penis is to vagina, we're actually limiting female sexuality to just a hole, and we're actually saying to women that's the only part of your sexual functioning that is important. But yet 80% of women have clitoral orgasms. Okay, continue. Okay, the vulva covers an opening called the vagina. In the fold of skin above the vagina is a little lump called the clitoris. Loving this even more. Which sometimes gets hard, a bit like a boy's erection. Seriously loving this book. In between the clitoris and vagina is a tiny hole called the urethra, which is where girls wee from. Now, not to mention any names, but I had a conversation with someone recently who was unaware, an adult, who was unaware that girls actually urinated from a urethra instead of the vaginal opening. And that's an adult. Becoming an adult. I'm sure you already know that boys and girls grow up to be men and women. You also might have noticed that little kids' bodies look very different to adult ones. Boys and girls' bodies usually begin to change when they're between 8 and 12 years old. This is called puberty. Remember puberty? Boys usually enter puberty at around the age of 12. Their voice becomes deeper and they grow hair on their face, chest, armpits, and around their scrotum and penis. Boys' penises grow larger and so do their testicles. Remember the testicles? Well, they're still hanging around, but now they have an important job to do. They make sperm. Sperm are so small you need a microscope to see them. They have really tails and look a lot like tiny tadpoles. Sperm swim around in the testicles in a white liquid called semen. The testicles produce millions of sperm every day, but only one sperm is needed to make a baby. Girls' bodies begin to change into women's bodies from around the age of 10 or 11 when they enter puberty. During puberty, girls grow hair under their arms and on and around their vulva. Their hips become wider and they grow breasts. I definitely remember that part. Inside her body, a girl has a sort of bag called a uterus or womb. On each side of the uterus are two round things called ovaries. These are connected to the uterus by tubes called fallopian tubes. The ovaries store tiny eggs about the size of a grain of sand. One of these eggs is needed to make a baby. Still, a lot of adults were unaware that that's how babies are made. It always amazes me when people get accidentally pregnant and say, I got accidentally pregnant, and I think, did you miss the part in sex ed where you learned that if you put a penis into a vagina that you can get pregnant without a condom? Okay, when a girl has gone through puberty, her ovaries start sending out an egg every month. The egg moves down one of the fallopian tubes to see if any sperm are going to be there. Still, I'm struggling to see why this book is so controversial. But I am a sexologist, so nothing is really controversial in my life. So now we know we need a sperm from a man and an egg from a woman to make a baby. But how do they get together? This is the interesting part. Sex and making babies. Okay, from an egg and sperm to get together, a man and a woman need to get together. They might start by kissing and touching each other with their clothes off. For adults, it feels special and exciting, and soon the woman's vagina becomes wet and the man's penis becomes hard. A bit like erections that little boy gets, but with a very different feeling. Okay, getting graphic. The man slides his penis into the woman's vagina and their bodies fit together rather like a puzzle. There's a nice little picture. This is what we call having sex or making love. The man pushes his penis up and down inside the woman, which then gives them both a tingly, excited, and loving feeling. As the feelings get stronger and stronger, the man moves faster and faster until the semen stored in his testicles shoots up and out of his penis into the woman's vagina. Isn't it interesting how I can make the act of sex sound like story time? Okay, fertilization. Now it's up to the sperm to find that egg. There are millions of sperm, but only one is needed to make a baby. The race is on. It's a long way up through the uterus to the fallopian tubes, and many sperm can't manage the journey. But when a strong swimming sperm and egg finally meet, they decide to stick together. It's true, you can pull them apart because, you can't pull them apart because when the sperm joins the egg, something called fertilization happens, and together they make an embryo. The embryo finds a nice warm squishy spot inside the uterus where it can stay and grow. Now from one egg and one sperm, we have the new beginning of a baby. Okay, we know that when one egg and one sperm get together, they can make a baby. But did you know sometimes that they can make two babies or even more? A fertilized egg can split in half to make two embryos, which will make two babies. These are called identical twins. They're always the same gender, two boys or two girls, and they'll look almost exactly alike. If the egg splits into more parts, there can be even more babies. Poor mum having to carry those babies. Sometimes a woman's ovaries send out more than one egg. If two eggs meet two sperm, they can make two embryos. These are called fraternal twins. They can be the same or opposite gender and they don't look exactly alike. Having more than one baby in your uterus is called multiple birth. Twins are the most common, but sometimes there can be more than two babies, although it's rare. The record is 8 babies. Hello, Optimum. Some people who want children find they can't make a baby by having sex. Sometimes the father's sperm are not strong enough to find the egg, or maybe the mother's egg can't get down the fallopian tube. These people will need some help from a doctor. This is called in vitro fertilization, or IVF. Now, I think this is such an important part to start kids off understanding that babies are not always born by 2 people having sex, and some people need help. And this is a really great way to normalize the subject, because as somebody who is working in the IVF fertility sector, there's so much shame around female sexuality. So this is a great way at a young age to really start busting some of those negative myths. IVF doctors take an egg from the mother and some sperm from the father and put them together in a special glass dish so they can find each other. When the egg and sperm have formed the embryo, the mother goes to hospital. The doctor puts the embryo in her uterus and it begins to grow, just like other babies. Sometimes there's a problem with the mother's eggs and then are unable to make a baby. An IVF doctor can use eggs donated by a different woman and fertilize them with the father's sperm to make an embryo. Very progressive. The embryo is then put into the mother's uterus and grows there. Another way a mother can become pregnant is through sperm donation. A man who is not the father can give some of his sperm to be placed in the woman's vagina by a doctor. Isn't it amazing when we simplify it into children's language, how it all seems so straightforward, and yet as adults we really struggle to understand it or even explain it to people sometimes. Maybe adults need to read this book as well. How the baby grows. A fertilized egg doesn't become a baby overnight. It takes a long time, more than 9 months, for a baby to grow big and strong, enough to be born. Inside the uterus, the embryo is connected to a thing called the placenta, which gives the baby everything it needs to grow. Around the placenta and baby is a sort of bag called the amniotic sac. This is full of watery liquid called amniotic fluid, in which the growing baby floats to keep it safe. Now, you or I would find it very difficult to breathe if our heads were in a watery liquid, but a baby growing inside its mother doesn't need to breathe through its nose or mouth. The baby gets all the air and food it needs from a tube called the umbilical cord, which connects the baby to its mother's uterus through the placenta. Okay. The baby changes a lot in 9 months. Sorry, I'm stumbling, I'm reading upside down. After 1 month, the baby, well, call it a girl, is the size of an apple seed. Oh. After 2 months, the baby is about the size of a grape, although she looks more like an alien. Oh, that's a nice way to scare children. She's got a massive head and a heartbeat and webbed hands and feet that look a little bit like duck's feet. Again, great way to scare children. After 3 months, the baby is the size of a plum. Now she's starting to look much more human. She has arms, legs, and even a little face. After 4 months, the baby is as big as an avocado. She has eyelashes, eyebrows, and fingernails, and she can even suck her thumb too. After 5 months, the baby is the size of a mango. Her brain is growing, she's moving around a lot, and she can even hear noises from outside. After 6 months, the baby is as big as an eggplant and getting even stronger. She has developed an immune system to keep her healthy and has a strong hand grip. She's also doing lots of kicking. Poor mum. After 7 months, the baby is the size of a small pumpkin. She can see, her bones are growing stronger, and she can even get the hiccups. After 8 months, the baby is the size of a bigger pumpkin or even a small watermelon, and things are getting pretty squashy in the uterus. She sleeps a lot and kicks and wriggles a bit too. Birth. Now we might really traumatize some children. Okay, after 9 months, a lot of growing, the baby is ready to be born. By now, she's probably turned upside down and her head is low in the uterus. The muscle in the uterus starts to squeeze and push, which gives the mother a sort of a tummy pain called a contraction. This is the first sign that the baby is ready to be born. The contraction pains get stronger and stronger and occur closer and closer together. Then it's time to go to the hospital or call the midwife. With each contraction, the baby is squeezed further towards the opening of the vagina. When the mother feels a strong urge to push, the baby is almost born. You can even see the top of the head. By now, the mother is usually very, very tired, but she gives one last big push, and out comes a brand new little baby. If only it was that easy. Sometimes a mother can't give birth through her vagina, so she has a special operation instead. or maybe the mother chooses that special operation. The doctors give her some medicine so it doesn't hurt, then make a cut in her tummy and through the uterus to take the baby out that way. This is called a cesarean birth. When the baby is born, what do you think the first thing she says? Of course babies can't talk, but they cry straight away. Most babies let out a big yell to fill their chest with air. Don't forget they've never had to breathe outside before. They're also probably a bit surprised at suddenly being squeezed out of a dark and cozy place into a big bright room full of strange people staring at them. It's kind of like being in winter and being dragged out from the dunas. The baby is learning to breathe, but she's still attached to her mother's placenta by the umbilical cord. The cord needs to be cut, but don't worry, it doesn't hurt a bit. While the umbilical cord is cut, a little bit is left on the baby's tummy. The doctor or midwife puts a kind of clip on it to dry it out. After a few days, the baby's cord shrivels up and falls off, leaving the baby with something she'll have for the rest of her life. Some babies are born too early. Oh, sorry, skipped a bit. A belly button. So next time you look at your belly button, just remember that you wouldn't be here without it. It does have a use. Some babies are born too early, when they're not quite ready to live outside the uterus. They are called premature babies and they need to stay in the hospital until they're big and strong, enough to go home. Feeding the baby. While the umbilical cord was feeding the baby in the mother's uterus, another part of the mother's body was getting ready to feed the baby after birth, the breasts. A newborn baby can't do a lot, but one thing she's really good at is sucking, which is lucky because her mother's breasts are now ready to make milk. The mother's milk will give the baby all she needs to grow and develop until she can start eating proper food when she's about 6 months old. If the mother can't feed the baby milk from her breasts, she can give her drink called formula from a bottle. Human bodies do all sorts of amazing things, but making little humans is one of the most amazing things of all. Little humans like you and you and you over there and you. And you and you, and you and you. And the end. The end. Okay, so for my final thoughts, I know that there was this concern about it was too much graphic detail. As you can see, most of the graphic detail is actually in birth. The sex part is only just a few pages. Now, another question has been, at what point is it right to read this to children? I really do think that there is no such thing as the right time, and it's up to you as a parent. If you feel that you need to skip the sex part and just go to the baby's part for now if they're a bit younger, I think what's really useful is when children start to ask questions. It might be, where do babies come from? Their friend might be having a little baby brother or sister brought into the world, or even you might be pregnant and having another child and need to explain to one child exactly what that's all about. So I do think this is a fantastic book. I do want to encourage parents that if they're looking for a way to explain their children about bodies, sex, human sexuality, how to make babies, this is a really great start. It's a story, it's nothing that's going to harm children, and it's really a good way to be able to display that message of, I'm here to talk to you about anything, I'll explain anything to you, and just to normalize the subject. If you can start to talk about sex and the capacity of how a baby's made, or even just using the right body names for someone's body, that's a really good way to be able to say that message. There's no shame on bodies and there's no shame on naked bodies, but every body part deserves the right name, because if we hide a body part by giving it a nickname, what do we start to say? That it's hidden, that we can't call it what it should be actually called, or that it's wrong. And that's where we start to introduce shame into people's bodies and eventually their sexual bodies. So I hope you enjoyed my review. If you have questions, you might have seen, if you've been following my Facebook page, that I have been answering a lot of Ask Dr. Nikki questions. So be sure to direct message me, ask me anything. And I also currently have an AMA link at the moment. That's an Ask Me Anything link. If you want to ask me anything about my job, about what it's like to be a sexologist, or if you have a particular love, sex, relationship, marriage, or dating question that you want answered. Okay, hope you have a good weekend. Bye.